pleasure. All right, here we are. It's 7 o'clock for me and many other times for other people around the world. If you would like to put in where you're from in the chat, you're very welcome to. And Jaya, is there anything that you'd like to say before we move in?
Yeah, so tonight will be mostly demonstration by Sarah. However, if you do have any questions, either when Sarah asks you if you have questions or during the very first intro, please to raise your hand to speak. On a computer, you'll move your cursor down to the bottom and activate the menu. You'll click participants, and then you'll see a little button that says raise hand. If you're on a mobile device, you can also click participants, and then there might be a more link with 3 dots, and you'll see an option to raise your hand. You're also more than welcome to use chat to ask questions. If you're calling in from a phone, *9 will raise your hand, and I'll mute and unmute you, but to mute and unmute, that's *6. And we're going to keep everyone muted just for sound quality, unless we call on you. So I think that's everything.
Thank you, Jaya. And welcome, everyone. Tonight is the annual free process work exploration, where we get to together look at what I've been using and working with over the last year that might be a little bit new or something that you haven't seen before if you have been tuning in over time. If you've never met me before, my great passion is bringing together the way that words affect our brain and help us to heal from emotional trauma. I've been doing this work for probably 15 years now, and I still feel stunned and amazed that words are like the neurotransmitters between humans, and that they get to help us reach into each other's beings, if of course there is consent, and that accompaniment, more than anything else, changes brains and heals trauma. So I always have a sense of being in the presence of the miraculous, and yet it's so extraordinarily prosaic, the way that we talk to each other, what we say, how we listen to each other, so prosaic and so profound at the same time. My plan for this evening is to take you through a little bit of neuroscience, just to give you a bit of background, and then to take you through a process that I've been working on this year about transforming blame into mourning. It's such a delight to see everybody signing in and putting where they're from. So many people from all over the world. What a pleasure. All right, some slides, my dears. So, transforming blame into mourning. We're going to start out by just learning a little bit about the left and the right hemispheres, very much in the tradition of the work that Ian McGilchrist has done with his book, The Master and His Emissary. Also, the 4 very huge and dense volumes that Alan Shore has produced about the importance of the right hemisphere in both relationship and in childhood and in therapy. And they are my inspirations, both of them extensively footnoted. So if you have a sense of like, where is Sarah getting this information? Those are the main sources for what we're working with this evening, in particular McGilchrist. So we have a left and a right hemisphere, and throughout the vertebrate world, the left and the right hemispheres have a different shape from each other and have different ways that their neurons connect and have different major jobs to do in allowing us to look at the world and see it in different ways. With our left hemisphere, we're able to do our analytic and sequential processing, our analytical thinking. And we have all kinds of words that begin to talk to us about what kinds of thinking are analytical thinking. Some of them are very left hemisphere, So sequential, focused, deductive, linear. These are all words that really work for those left hemisphere neurons. Some of the other words on this slide I'm noticing take us actually into the right hemisphere because we really need both left and right hemispheres for all of the major tasks that we do in the world. It's just that we see the world differently through each lens. The left hemisphere builds a picture of what is going on, brick by brick, while the right hemisphere favors what's called parallel processing, taking the information from different streams of information simultaneously and creating a big picture. The right hemisphere has moments of insight that pull everything together into a whole. And for the right hemisphere, knowledge comes through relationship, through betweenness. It is a back and forth reverberative process between itself and the other, and is therefore never finished and never certain. This is a direct quote from McGilchrist. And this also, passing on what the right hemisphere knows requires the other person to already have an understanding which can be awakened. If they have no such understanding, they will be easily seduced into thinking that the left hemisphere's kind of knowledge is a substitute. So to give you a sense of what McGilchrist is saying here, he's saying there will be a way that your right hemispheres will understand what we're doing this evening. And they will understand it in a way that is not complete, but that gets built interaction by interaction, which is one of the reasons that tonight's evening is most heavily focused on demos. We have a large number of people who are in line for possibly doing demos who answered the very first email round. And we will probably get to do 2 or 3, possibly 4, but we will just do what we can. And that's why I need to move with expedition through the slides. But what I want to say is that your left hemisphere will struggle to understand what's happening, and it will want the list of what we do in order to make this kind of transformation happen. So just as you notice yourself wanting that clarity, and there is that clarity, I do have that list for us towards the end of the slides, but notice that that's the way one part of your brain wants to understand it, and that there's another part of your brain that's already, as you watch the demonstrations, already saying, oh yeah, this makes total sense. So now let's look at the left hemisphere thought patterns, which are most rewarding. And the left hemisphere is run on dopamine, so it really likes its rewards. The left hemisphere is very, very pleased with anger and aggressive behavior. It's very rewarded by predatory aggression. I just recently saw a piece of research about how we become addicted. Actually, Jaya's dad sent it to me. It was so cool. About how we become addicted to having a grudge, carrying a grudge. That's the dopamine. We get so rewarded for carrying grudges. We get a dopamine rush. And we get dopamine rushes when we get to control the situation, when we get to dismiss things and turn away from them, when we get to deny things, when we get to hold on to the high ground of our righteousness, one of my personal favorites, when we have unwarranted optimism, and when we have intolerance and inflexibility and inability to change our mind, just staying on our track. The left hemisphere really has no idea how to integrate difficult information, because difficult information is located in the space between you and me. It's not one person's done something bad and harmed another person, and there's a black and white to the picture. No, difficult information relationally is about how Both of us are compromised by what we've lived through and compromised by our traumas. And that's much more difficult to hold on to than saying that someone's wrong and someone's right. So the left hemisphere uses its superpower, its only tool for the integration of new information, for the assignment of who is responsible, otherwise known and experienced as blame. Blame is the left hemisphere's way of integrating new information. What does this mean? First of all, the left hemisphere does not want to take responsibility. And if the defect might reflect on ourselves, our left hemisphere does not want to accept it. If someone or something else can be made to take responsibility, if we get to see ourselves as victims of someone else's wrongdoing, our left hemispheres are very happy to blame them. But in this funny way that the brain works, that I talk about in all of my books, the left hemisphere also, if it can't find somebody else to blame, it wants to blame us. Or often we're just blame ourselves as a matter of course and not blame anybody else ever. But it's the same phenomenon, whether we're finding ourselves as the one to blame or finding others as the one to blame. It's this left hemisphere sidestep of the difficult information that we don't want to know, don't want to accept, don't want to integrate. Because the left hemisphere doesn't see the big picture, it likes to hold a single person or a single group responsible. If a person with brain damage to their right hemisphere has a paralyzed arm or leg, they can't integrate that that limb belongs to them. So if I'm here and I take a blow to my right hemisphere and it's damaged, and I have a paralyzed left arm, then Jaya would say to me, Sarah, who does this left arm belong to? And I would say, Jaya, it must be yours, you're holding it. It has nothing to do with me because I can't feel it and my right hemisphere is damaged, and it's the part that tells me that all of me belongs to myself. But with it gone, I don't know that all of me belongs to myself. I can't see the big picture with my left hemisphere. And so people will say, that arm belongs to my neighbor, it isn't mine. Until we say to them, it's someone else's fault. Sarah, it's someone else's fault. Someone hit your car with their car, they T-boned you, you have a severed spinal column, and that's why you can't move. Aha, now I know it's someone else's fault, and now I can integrate that. The arm belongs to me. I can integrate the new information about the paralysis. If on the other hand, the brain damage I have is on my left hemisphere, then it's no problem for me to understand what happened, because my hemisphere that understands what happened is online. The left hemisphere would rather believe authority, what it says on a piece of paper, over the evidence of its own senses. So all of the time when we become so convinced of something and we don't want to believe any nuances about another side, another picture, another way of thinking about things, that's our left hemisphere. It's got a conviction. And this nice little Venn diagram gives you a picture of this. Objective facts and the ones that confirm our beliefs. This is what we see. This has great implications for our work this evening. And when we separate from ourselves, we can become the target of our own blame. I said that a moment ago. Our right hemisphere also can actually contribute to blame. It makes blame more intense when we're blaming people. If Jaya gets hurt, I have tremendous empathy and love for Jaya. And if Jaya gets hurt, then I will blame the person that ran into her car much more intensely than just a random person I don't know who gets run into by a car. So the more empathy we have for whoever's received the harm, the more strongly we blame the inflictor of harm. And that's a relational piece of our blame picture, and that does connect us to the right hemisphere. And the more harm that was inflicted by an action, the more we believe that the action is or was intentional. Now, this is also very important for us this evening because when we blame, we often have a sense that people's actions are intentional. The function of blame is to save us from mourning. It's to save us from having to step into the empty space of our right hemisphere, which is the hemisphere that holds grief and mourning. And there can be no neurons there if we've never been supported in mourning. So if we haven't traditionally had the right hemisphere neurons we've needed to be able to mourn, then our blame has saved our lives. So the question that we get to ask ourselves always, and you'll see this in the process, is what are we trying not to mourn? Here's an overview of the process that we'll be demoing this evening, transforming blame into grief. First, we'll find out what is my blaming statement. So my blaming statement, I'll just take myself through this very quickly as a little tiny demo before we step into the real stuff. What is my blaming statement? My blaming statement is that the person who wrote to me wants something from me. They want me to be different than I am, and they're threatening me with exclusion if I do not comply. So what do I think they're doing intentionally or that they're abdicating choice about? I think that they're abdicating choice about being self-responsible for their own emotions, and that they're using their own privilege to hurt me, that they're abdicating choice. They're not stepping into their full humanity. Now, if the other person that I'm blaming is actually choiceless about their behavior, what am I trying not to mourn? What do I not want to be true? In this case, if this person who wrote me this email threatening me is actually choiceless about their behavior, then I'm trying not to mourn human frailty, and I'm trying not to mourn. I don't want it to be true that people don't know what they're doing. It's very lonely. And then if that other person is actually choiceless, the next question is, do I start to blame myself? Well, I do. If that other person is choiceless, I do have a little condemnation and contempt for Sarah holding a grudge. And if I am also choiceless, what am I trying not to mourn? So in this case now, if I'm choiceless about my desire for people to have choice, I just feel this deep compassion actually for myself as I'm kind of stepping into a certain kind of loneliness that comes when we start to see people in their stuckness. Do I have unconscious contracts that protect me from the truth? Do I have a contract not to see? Yes, I do. I have a contract to blame people when they hurt me. Yeah, in order to, and it's something like, I, Sarah, solemnly swear to my essential self to blame people when I feel hurt by their actions. In order to, it's like to have boundaries and to try to prevent harm to myself, no matter the cost to myself, even when there's somebody random who doesn't know me at all, who just wrote me a random email. So what have I just done there? Because we're not quite finished with the process, but we're taking a small detour so that you understand unconscious contracts. Unconscious contracts are the subject of the next book that's coming out on May 25th, available now online as a pre-order. And this book is all about the way that we make unconscious agreements with ourselves. They are very serious. They're meant to protect us, to keep us alive, to help us deal with the places where we don't have the neurons to catch ourselves in our own brains. They're there to honor us, to save our parents, to save our siblings. With our unconscious contracts, we're always trying to save our own lives or those of the people that we love or who we want to love us. Our contracts are based on original relational survival strategies that we discovered when we were tiny. If I could make somebody else wrong, then I would still exist. I wouldn't just be obliterated. They're strategies that allow us to leverage our infant nervous systems for relationship. And sometimes this means that we try to be happy to make our mothers happy. Sometimes it means that we cry in order to try to bring our mothers out of dissociation. Sometimes it means that we become very, very quiet in order to reduce the burden of our existence on our mother. And we can make contracts to try to protect ourselves from seeing what is true. I will not see in order to save myself from pain. I will not allow myself to understand in order to save myself from shame. I will not let myself know that the other has no choice in order to protect my mother from shame. And that one gives me a little pricking of tears. I think it's related to the work that I was just doing. That if I can blame the people that harm me inadvertently, now you can hear that the work is starting to have an effect. I'm starting to say, instead of the people who hurt me, the people who harm me inadvertently. You can hear in my voice and in my word choice that the work that I'm doing is starting to change the way my brain is holding this question. And it would protect my mother from shame, because if she had incapacity, she had terrible shame. So if I just blamed her for being deliberately wrong, then we were protecting her from shame. To let myself see I will not let myself see my own helplessness and choicelessness in order to keep going, in order to keep from drowning in grief. These are the kinds of things that are a part of what's underneath the desire not to see what's true. And finally, what is my beautiful longing? This is the end piece of we've made our detour through the unconscious contracts, and now this is our final question. What is my beautiful longing? So here's what I promised, the outline of the process. And I'm not sure how we'll give this to you.
I think I think I'll just add number 6 in here. I think I'm mostly gonna.
Okay. So now we'll do some of our demo work so that you'll start to see at all what, now we'll start to see what this work is like when we step into it, not just as Sarah doing a demo with herself, but Sarah getting to work with someone. There are people who signed up. They signed up like a month or 6 weeks ago, so they may not be wanting to do it tonight, but I'll check in with them anyway. And our very first person is Valerie. Valerie W. Are you available, Valerie? Would you like to do a little piece of work?
Yes.
Wonderful. What's coming up for you? What are we working with? What have you been hanging on to as a blame?
Well, I'm in or out of connection with my daughter. It's been prolonged for about 2 years, and I have received blame from my daughter, and it's very easy for me to blame myself. It's very easy for me to blame my own parents and the kind of generations for my upbringing, that I didn't have the capacity to accompany my daughter in difficult times in a way that would have saved her from the pain that she experienced.
So it sounds like you more are blaming yourself.
Yeah.
And
that's the predominant flavor.
And your family trauma as well. Yeah, your family. Yeah. So we'll just start with that very first question. What is your blaming statement?
I didn't hear the last word. What is my blaming?
What is your blaming statement?
It's my fault that this connection is broken.
It's my fault that this connection is broken.
Um,
I'm just going to make a note of it so that I can come back to it. Okay. Is there something that you want to say about your family as a blaming statement, or is this good enough to start?
If I was going to blame my family, like, yeah, like the genes and the behaviors that surrounded me inevitably led me to be incapable of a healthy attachment with my daughter. Something like that.
Great. Okay. So our next question is, what do you think you were doing intentionally or that you were abdicating choice about?
What do I think that I was doing intentionally? Trying to stay sane.
Trying to stay safe.
Sane.
Same, trying to stay sane.
Yeah, trying to stay capable of looking after two children and kind of above water a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if in trying to stay sane and keeping your head above water, you didn't have a choice about how you parented, how does that land for you? What happens for you if you didn't have a choice?
Oh, just sorrow, just like sadness. Yeah.
And
then what emerges is like, like I shouldn't have been so alone, or like there should have been more support, or somebody should have told me that, like, it was just really okay to ask for support or to receive support.
Yeah. So also it sounds like almost an anger or blame of the universe for not getting to you. I'm not letting you know.
And also there's something there about a kind of generational expectation that relationships with mothers and daughters will be difficult.
Oh.
Like and maybe even thinking, like, if that hadn't been my reality, maybe I wouldn't have moved halfway across the world away from my network of potential support.
Yeah. So now it feels like we get to ask this third question. If your family and the generations were also choiceless about their behaviors and the damage that they carried that impacted you in so many ways, if they were actually choiceless, how does that land for you?
I feel a little bit of a split. Like my head gets like, well, kind of like my head almost feels like it's going, of course, and my heart just feels sad.
Yeah.
And like, I think my head wants me to hurry up and accept it.
Oh,
It's really hard to accept it.
Yeah, no. We get to say, I don't want it to be true. Say, I don't want it to be true that.
I don't want it to be true that they had no choice. Like, why?
Yeah.
Like if they had choice, then maybe there's hope for the human race. Or
yes, exactly.
Uh, and if they didn't have choice, then like, oh, this is really tough.
Yeah. Yeah. That is reverberating in me. How is it doing in your body? If it's okay to ask.
My body is comfortable. Yeah. Yeah. There's a bit of like congestion and discomfort here, but
Yeah.
I'm really doing pretty well. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then our next question is, do you have any unconscious contracts that are protecting you from the truth? It's almost like you just touched one and released it just then. I will not believe that my ancestors had no choice in order to keep hope alive for the human race, no matter the cost to myself.
Can I have the question again?
Yeah, yeah. Does I sort of made it as a statement. I said it almost like you already said this contract, and I was checking with you to find out if it felt
Yeah.
true to you, but it almost felt like you might have released it already. So just see if there's a part of if your mind or your body is saying no, no, they had a choice.
If is my mind or body saying no, they had a choice. I don't know. I
Mm,
really don't know.
mm,
That's quite frightening.
mm. Now circle back around to yourself now in relationship with your daughter and see what's happening with the self-blame for me.
Um, the self-blame, like it feels quite relaxed.
Uh-huh.
Um, I notice like my voice is much easier.
Yes, I
Um,
can hear that.
um, there's kind of more spaciousness in my chest, my heart area.
Yeah.
Like I really know I did the best that I could do.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I can't think of any time I was consciously reckless or, uh, yeah.
yeah.
Uh, I can think of times when I was not really able to be present for my kids and was very unwell. And like, um, I think it must have been really very scary for them at times to see me so emotionally distraught.
Yeah.
And I have memories of being with my mother when she was emotionally distraught uh, and self-blaming.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's
We
what comes.
learn it at the feet of the masters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so I'm a little lost right now.
Well, just see from this new place whether there's a request you have of yourself in relationship with your daughter. Just like, what is does your body have a request now for responsiveness, for acceptance, for
Yeah, it's around acceptance and uh, releasing the habit of moving to self-blame as readily as I do. That would be really
mm,
nice.
mm. Since I've got you here and we're touching this, let's just see what your contract is to blame yourself.
Okay.
I, Valerie, solemnly swear to my essential self that when something goes wrong, I will blame Valerie. Does that sound,
Yeah.
does that sound true?
Yeah.
In order to,
In order to be able to preserve the hope that I can fix it by my actions,
yeah, yeah. Oh, no matter the cost to myself.
no matter the cost to myself
Yeah. Oh,
or those around me. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then we'll just say, essential self of Valerie, did you hear the vow that Valerie made to you? And this is the beautiful thing. I'll take a little moment to say to everybody, this is the beautiful thing. When we are making contracts with ourselves, we get to release them. Yeah, so does your essential self like this contract?
No, it stinks.
Oh, what'd you tell Valerie? I release you from this vow.
Valerie, I release you from this vow.
And I revoke this contract.
I revoke this contract.
And instead, I give you my blessing to...
And instead, I give you my blessing to acknowledge disappointment, be with what is and breathe.
Oh. Oh.
Live in an interdependent space, connected with others. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Valerie. How does your body do with the release and the blessing?
I probably will need to say that to myself a few times. It feels like it's like
yes, I often have that experience with layers and layers of these contracts. Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something there more about like really to be able to aspire and be with my humanity and embrace the results of all my experiments.
Oh yes. yes. That's a bit of a revelation to my body. It likes that. Valerie, does this feel like an okay place for today?
It does. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Is it okay if we get at least 5 or 6 chats posted for you of
I would love that.
gifts received?
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you were touched or moved by Valerie's work, please write it in the chat. Please say what need was met for you, what gift you received from Valerie doing the work. This is not a place for suggesting strategies or telling people what you would do if you were in their place. It's really a time for people to name how your own heart was touched. Yeah. Thank you all for speaking about these things. Jaya, did you see any questions that need to be answered before we go to the next demo person?
I did see some questions if we have a few more.
Yes.
And Valerie, I'll unpin you so you can enjoy reading them, being on the spotlight. Yeah. And Nate was wondering, and I think there may have been the answer to, but are these 6 questions appropriate for all conscious contracts or only for contracts involving blame?
These ones are specific to especially stubborn blame of self or others.
Matt?
And then,
we can.
And then there was one other question. I'm sorry, I was looking, getting you. Stephen from Santa Fe asks, would this process work even if someone did not know any of the neurobiology knowledge about blame?
Yes, it would work if they wanted to look at it. One of the prerequisites for this process is both that you have an intense blame and that you'd kind of like to shift it. Because if you have an intense blame that you love, then you're not going to be very willing to take a path through the steps. So those are the things that are important, is having it and wanting something different.
And then there's a question from Loretta. Loretta's hand's up. So Loretta, go kind of spotlight you here.
Please, Loretta.
Hi. On the slide earlier where it said what it says on a piece of paper, it had to do, I can't quite recall exactly, but it was about what is on a piece of paper and how that,
I'll see if I
in
can.
any event, I can't, they weren't numbered. I wish I could reference it back, but it had something to do with what happens in the brain when something is on a piece
Oh,
of
I
paper
found it.
textually.
Yes, I found it. The
Got
left
it.
hemisphere would rather believe authority, what it says on a piece of paper, over the evidence of its own senses. Yeah.
Great, thank you. What I have explored for myself and want an answer to is, I'm recalling and noticing there's something in me stimulated around text. Specifically, I trace it back to my first exposure to text as a Bible being the truth.
Oh my God.
And I was trying, I've had this stimulus. I don't need a whole workout here, but I just wondered where that fits in.
Well, it very well may be that you have a contract to hold text as sacred.
Yeah, because I'm noticing the stimulus happens when I'm reading text as news as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's bewildering, but thank you. I just, it never really settled in me as sacred, yet it was presented to me. So thank you.
Yeah, kind of see if some of your cells have a contract that's different from some of your other cells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it could be the cells of your eyes. It can be very specific. So,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Loretta, for the question. Jaya, are there any more questions in this moment?
There are a couple more, and I'll keep scanning through, but just one moment, just two more now, and then we can come back later. Okay. Margaret R. asks, is resentment a form of blame?
Yeah, resentment is a form of blame. It means that we've been blaming for a long time, and that there are a lot of instances that are mounted up that that we consider to have happened at the choice of, or in the abdication of choice by someone else or something else systemic. Yeah.
Okay. And then Smita asks, how do I release myself from blaming my spouse for his infidelity? I'm not sure if he's still connected with the other lady. So.
Yeah, this is very, very important. And in these cases, it can go very deep, and it can take some years of work. But you start with these things. Do you believe that he did it on purpose? Do you believe that he abdicated choice on purpose? And if he was choiceless, what do you mourn? What do you wish weren't true? And if he is choiceless, what do you then start to blame yourself for? And what do you trying not to mourn when you blame yourself? And it takes some time and accompaniment. Yeah.
And one more question, and then we'll move on. Nathalie is wondering, does this only work when the other is choiceless?
This is a deep philosophical question about how much choice we have. My sense from neuroscience is that we don't have very much choice. That if our body and brain make up 100% of our intention, that we have about 3% choice out of that 100%. So it's a very interesting question, the question of humanness and free choice, because the more we learn about neuroscience, the more we learn that our body is responding before our brain ever responds, and the more we learn that what we've lived through before structures what we anticipate and how we respond. So we can have contracts that make us believe that choice exists, because it makes it much more comfortable to live in the world. And then there's a paradoxical miracle of these moments of free choice. Go ahead, Jaya.
So I'm just wondering if the choice is behaviorally or cognitively that we have so little choice.
There's not much difference when we get down to it. We're thinking with our body much more than we realize. The body and the brain are not as divided as they are implied to be by the language we use about them.
I think we could keep going with questions for now, but we can take
Let's go to our next person. Is that Sarah W?
Sarah W wrote to us saying they weren't available.
They are not available.
Yeah, so Emma, I think.
Emma S. Are you available, Emma?
I just need 1 second before I turn the video on. I wasn't expecting to go quite this fast.
Great.
Hi.
Go ahead, Emma.
I'm ready.
Okay. What is the blame that you would like us to hold together?
Okay, so I was trying to decide. I was almost changing my mind as I was listening, because the situation for me has to do with a fear that I experienced of being big, bold, expressing myself in the world, a sense of expansion or possibility, and not getting support for that from other people, or not experiencing myself as safe when I feel that way. And I don't really know if that has more to do with my mother and her traumas, or the bullying that I experienced at school between about grades 3 and 5. So I also get the sense that I don't really know who I blame, or maybe I blame everybody and myself as well. So maybe you can help me get a bit more specific here.
Yeah. See what comes if you say, they were wrong, and then see who the they feels like in this moment.
Yeah. So it would be the teacher and the kids at school. That's who comes up when you say they were wrong.
Okay. And then just check with your body, because does your body want to be working with the blame of your mom or blame of the self rather than with the teacher and the kids? Just check. Is there disappointment that what came up was the teacher and the kids?
No, I wasn't feeling disappointment.
Okay. So I think in order to do this, we actually probably need to add the time travel. We need to get your little one out of there, because the way the amygdala works is it's still experiencing receiving the harm. So if you and I were to step through time and space to be with Emma, age grade 3 to 5, do we find her? Is it okay with her that we come?
We do, but I feel like I'm her. Like I'm
You become her
in her shoes, and my experience is not adult me watching her.
Okay. I think your adult will come as we work, but you just be the little one for now. And is it okay that I came? Does your little one know who I am? Is there enough of a sense of knowing that this is Sarah, that she's somebody that grown-up Emma's interested in? And is that okay?
Yeah.
And where do we find you? Are we in a classroom, on a playground?
Playground.
Okay. So what we want to do first is just to freeze everybody on the playground. We'll just turn them all to rocks, so that it just becomes a playground studded with rocks besides us, so that there's no danger anymore. And what happens for the little Emma that we've made the playground safe?
It might be safe, but suddenly it feels quiet and lonely.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. So then maybe our first guess would be, do you need acknowledgement that even though the bullying sucks, at least other people are around?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that at some point it's some form of relationship, and because it was the social kind of bullying and it happened by people who were my friends, I still wanted the friendship.
Yeah. Is there a need to say how confusing this is?
Yes.
That
Yep.
there's sort of no up. There's no, everything is turning all the time.
No explanation of why this would be happening. Why people who used to be my friends would suddenly be doing this.
Mm-hmm. Is there bewilderment and incredulity?
Maybe. I'm not really feeling it. Like there could have been a flash of it, but it's more like just pain.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Do you need acknowledgement of how much it hurts?
I do, and something else comes up around it seemed that they enjoyed making me cry, that they laughed and smiled about it, and that was the goal of the game, the exercise, whatever you want to call it.
As you say that, I feel horror and a great deal of protectiveness. How is it for the little one to hear that?
Finally.
Yeah.
Finally someone gets it.
Yeah. Yeah. Has it been a very lonely time waiting for someone to get it?
Yeah.
And just check for me if your grown-up self has started to appear, or if it's just still me and the little one.
I'm not sure. I feel like some of my adult cognition is there, but I also have a really strong reaction whenever anyone tells me as my adult self to love the child self, because in the past people have always introduced that with me way too soon when I wasn't ready to do it. So I'm struggling with that right now. Like I do feel it's strange. I feel like there's some sort of integration going on, but it is almost like there's more of my adult self there experiencing it rather than, okay, there's adult Emma standing there watching.
Thank you for letting me know that that kind of pressure has happened for you before. That's very important. Yeah. Well, just see for me if there's something else that the little one would like understood about what's going on.
That I need help, that I can't handle this on my own.
Yes. Would the little one like a little acknowledgement that that all over the world, what's needed when bullying happens is systemic change, nothing to do with the children. Yeah.
Yeah. I want that.
Yeah. Would Emma love to live in a world where the systems were responsive to the kids and make sure everybody was safe?
Yeah. And there's also a part of me that still feels very alone with this burden,
Yes.
that almost feel like a physical burden on me that no one helped. And it's almost hard from that place to even know or acknowledge that this is happening to anyone else. I think my adult self really resonates a lot with what you said,
Mm.
but there's also a sense of
Yeah.
like, I'm alone with this, and that's all I can know right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there something like, do you have an alarmed aloneness? Is there a sense of loneliness so intense that it turns into fear almost?
At this particular time, no, it feels more like a heaviness, a burden, like a crushing, like I can't move.
Mm. Is it like there are boulders piled on this little one's nervous system?
Yep.
Is it like all of the people that we turned into rocks on the playground are piled on top of our grade 3 to 5 Emma?
Maybe. I'm not sure about that. Maybe some of their like I'm feeling their emotions or their energy, but I'm not sure about that.
Okay. May I just imagine that I'm sitting with you in the playground?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just going to close my eyes for a moment. Oh, I want to say to her, Emma, have you been not breathing for a very long time? Mm. Mm. Yeah. And I also want to ask her, did you take on the bewilderment as self-blame? Did you assume there must be something that could be blamed about you for this happening?
Yep.
Mm. Yeah.
Something wrong with me. And I mean, this was later. I think I might have been in my teens when I started having this thought that it was survival of the fittest and they eliminated me because I was weak.
Mm.
So yes, I did blame myself.
Okay.
For not being strong enough.
Oh. I have a sense, I want to say something that I have a sense about bullying, which is different from weak. In a world where children don't get to feel, if there's a child that feels, then all of a sudden that child can become a target, which is very different from being weak. Does it feel different to the child, or does Emma feel like, no, Sarah, you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about?
I think there's a sense of being open and trusting.
Mm.
And that I did not prior to this see any reason to be guarded. And so the things that happened were kind of a humiliating surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to close my eyes again just to be with Emma in the playground. What's happening with the rocks or the weights piled on her, or the crushing?
So, wow, they're back where they were before.
Okay.
They're not on me.
Oh, very good. Very good. Very good.
There might be like one or two of them on me. Like I still feel something, but just immediately when you said that, I went back there where they were.
Would Emma like to live in a world where she is protected?
Yes.
Yeah. Does she need conscious guardians who can see what's happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who look at the situation, and when they see someone's being harmed, or that it's unfair, or that injustice is happening, that they have a reaction to it and that they act on it.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. What a good dream. And just anything you notice now about Emma's body, if it's okay to ask.
It's like I feel lighter now.
Mm.
And somehow it's like I can see it's okay. Someone from the future is gonna come get me.
Oh, very nice.
Like I don't feel stuck. I feel less stuck or confined to that time somehow.
Does she want to come back through time and space and be with you, her grown-up self? Would she like that? And just tell me if I'm moving too fast.
I think that feels too fast.
That's too fast. Okay. What I'd like to do is to kind of leave her now with me sitting with her for a little bit and work with you with this blame process, if you'd like to, with you as an adult with the
Sure.
So, and you tell me again, what we really want to do when we're doing this work is we want to respect the traumas that we have lived through. And there can be something about the question of people being choiceless that minimizes the sense of harm done. So ask you the question, just see if it's minimizing for you, because if it is, it's not a road we actually want to go down tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. So if the kids and the teacher were actually choiceless about their behavior, how does that land for you?
Well, in one sense, and I think this is more intellectual, I can understand that. And also at the same time, it's like, seems impossible. Like, how can you see harm happening? You can see that someone is suffering and not do anything about it. How can someone be choiceless about that? It just doesn't make sense.
Right. So then the question is then, and again, if it's okay to ask, if it doesn't minimize the experience, what do you not want to be true?
Okay. Wow. Something like, what I don't want to be true is that I was just unlucky, or is it like the misfortune of being stuck in that situation, that it was just tough luck, you know? I feel like there's more to that I can't quite capture with words, but that what I don't want to be true is that nothing could have been different.
It's very beautiful, actually. My body is breathless and moved. Now I'm going to ask this question for the grown-up instead of for the little one. Do you want to live in a different world? Do you want to live in a world where people take action, where things are changed for children who are vulnerable and receiving harm?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where there is an attitude of curiosity and questions about differences and wanting to know more rather than fear, pushing away, aggression, etc. Although, of course, as you talked about, there's the left brain, right brain thing again. People dealing with differences by pushing them away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now just reach through time to the little one in the playground with me. How's she doing? What's happening for her now?
So again, I show up as her, and it's almost like she's just waiting. Not a stressful waiting, but just kind of hanging there.
Okay. So come back to your grown-up self again. I'm going to ask the next question. If those kids and that teacher were actually choiceless, do you start to blame yourself?
That's interesting because I think when I was blaming them, I was also blaming myself, or that the self-blame was somehow under that. First I blamed myself, then I blamed them, but I was still really blaming myself underneath. But now, like if they were choiceless, then do I blame myself? Maybe. Yeah, because then what's coming up is a sense of like I should have done something differently. I'm surprised that that came up, but it did. So.
And if you actually were choiceless, what happens for you?
Increased freedom. Yeah, it's strange, but yeah.
Yeah.
Not all of a sudden, wow, I'm free, but definitely like an increased sense of freedom.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Is there anything that you don't want to be true?
I don't know if it connects to that, to the I was choiceless idea, but I'm still worried that I'm inferior inside.
Would you check for me if you have a contract to believe you are inferior inside?
Probably.
I, Emma, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will believe I am inferior inside in order to...
For sure, protect myself. Maybe even protect other people.
Yeah. No matter the cost to myself.
Right.
Essential self of Emma, did you hear this contract?
Yep.
Is this a good one for Emma?
Well, it's limiting for sure.
It was a lifesaver when she was little. Is it still a lifesaver now?
That's a tough one. Obviously, there's still part of me that believes it is because, as I described, when I start to have that expansive energy, I feel the shut down. So physically, it's still part of me believes it's life-saving and necessary.
I'm smiling because makes so much sense that we would do this. I mean, especially if, if we take as a given that it's not, that being the target is not about weakness, but maybe just about actually authentically being. Is there, let me check for a slightly different contract. A contract to not authentically be.
Yeah.
In order to keep
Protect myself
from
harm,
yeah,
death.
yeah, yeah. No matter the cost to myself.
Yep.
Yeah. And essential self of Emma, do you like this contract?
No.
Okay. Please tell Emma, I release you from this contract.
Is that easy?
It's a start. More than 2 minutes ago.
What if I don't believe it? And I just say it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Emma, I release you from this contract.
And I revoke this vow.
And I revoke this vow.
And instead, I give you my blessing to.
And instead, I give you my blessing to live fully and expansively and expressively.
Maybe if we just put a little bit of mitigation on there.
Okay.
When it feels good.
When it feels good.
Is that okay? To add
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, when it feels safe. I like that because when it really feels safe,
Mm.
not not reflexively from past circumstances to check the environment. Yes.
Oh, wonderful. How does the little Emma do, who is waiting?
So again, I showed up as her, not watching or and I'm expanding almost like the boundaries of my body were more diffuse for a moment and I'm just feeling energy.
Mm. And again, I'll just check with her. Does she want to come forward in time? Does she want to know for sure that she survived that moment and that you...
Wow. Okay. So I was not expecting that. It's almost like when you said it, it just happened. Like there was a thread of connection, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh. Where is she now?
I don't know. I mean, this is it's like I'm me. There aren't two of me. This question doesn't make sense.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, let me check in with that first vow that we found that wasn't releasable initially. I am solemnly swear to my essential self that I will. Can't even remember it. Do you remember what it was?
Maybe someone in the comments can help us out because I think you said to not authentically be, and then there was something about.
Yeah, we did then to not authentically be.
But the first one was feel inferior.
Yes.
It was feel inferior.
That it is. Yes, believe I am inferior. Thank you, everybody. Yes. In order to
protect myself.
Mm-hmm. Is that still a good vow?
No.
Good. Please say, Emma, I release you from this vow.
Emma, I release you from this vow.
I revoke this contract.
I revoke this contract.
And instead, I give you my blessing to.
And instead, I give you my blessing to exist as you are.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little moment there because I was like, well, I wouldn't want to say superior, but I
to enjoy?
Yeah, joy, sure. Yeah. To feel like fullness, abundance, I suppose.
Wonderful. So now we'll just check back in, thinking about the kids and the teacher, what's happening with the blame.
I mean, it's really dissolving. Like, I'm not suddenly feeling joy, freedom, or anything like that. But it's like there's a clarity or a peace there that didn't used to be a sort of a suspension, not suspension of disbelief, but it's like something has been cleared out.
Oh, very good. Very good. Is this a good place for today then?
Yes.
Okay. Is it all right to invite needs met and gifts received in the comments?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
Comments.
Yeah. So I'll let you read the comments as they come in, and I'll check with Jaya about whether there are questions that we should be answering.
Yeah, there were a few questions that came through. Gail from the Bronx asked, is betrayal inevitable then if it's choiceless? And it seems like lack of choice sounds like you're letting people off the hook for accountability.
So again, we're touching this very interesting, almost philosophical question about accountability. What if people are both choiceless, and in order to be relational with us, they need to be accountable for their choicelessness? What if what we long for is to be with people who are conscious enough of their impact without being destroyed by understanding that they've had an impact, that they're able to make repairs with us? It's a different world. It's a different paradigm to live in. It's part of the stepping out of the field of right and wrong, or stepping into the field beyond right or wrong, I guess, is the Rumi quote. Yeah. I love accountability. And I think that we need to be accountable for the impact that we have, and that we are so often choiceless about the impact we have. Gail, I noticed that you write, so there is no right or wrong. I think there's right and wrong in that when that we are now at a point where we can actually see the harm that we do. We can see the harm that we do to bodies, and we can see the harm that we do to brains. So, for example, bullying. The experience of being bullied by our peers leaves a different scarring in the brain than the experience of being bullied by parents, than the experience of witnessing domestic violence. All of these things are traumas that leave after effects in the brain. So we have scars on our body, and we have scars in our brain from the different kinds of trauma and abuse that we live through. And the people who inflict those traumas and abuses are choiceless mostly. They're at the effect of their own traumas. And what they do is not right. And systemically, we need to have ideas about how to protect people and how to put systems into place that support people's well-being and protect people from receiving harm to their brains and their bodies. I don't know if this is making sense, Gail, but that's where I land on it.
Diane says, so everyone is doing the best that they can with the very limited choices that we actually have?
Well, that's what Marshall said, wasn't it? That everybody's doing their best to meet. Marshall Rosenberg, who created nonviolent communication as a modality, he said everybody's doing their best to meet needs at any given point, sometimes with tragic consequences.
And then just, are you up for 2 more questions?
Sure.
Yes, 3. Is the point of releasing vows to give us more choice? And this was sort of answered in the chat, but.
Yeah. I have this sense that the vows keep us suspended off the earth, that they that they keep us out of relationship with what really is, almost like spider web. I tried to find a picture of a person caught in spider web, but they were all scary. so I decided not to make a picture of it, but that we're kind of suspended. It could be marionette strings that are kind of keeping us off the earth. And as we release the vows, we move more and more into relationship with what is. And we start to have more and more choice that, and instead of being driven by our compulsions, that we begin to be sort of pulled by our passions. So it's a very different feeling of engagement with the world as we begin to release the contracts. And you said there was one more question, Jaya?
Yeah. Well, there's two about the 3% choice piece. Okay. There might be more in the chat, but this is what I've had tracked so far. Someone asked, I'll just read you both of these at the same time and you can see how you want to answer. Someone says, where does true liberation fit into 3% choice? And the other is this 3% choicelessness or choice kind of like when you're driving down the highway fast, you sometimes can't see that there is an alternate route because you are past the turnoff for the new route before you see it. Or you never even see it because you're so focused on the road you're on.
I think so. I think so. The contracts keep us on the road and not being able to see what other choices there are. Yeah. Let's just acknowledge that it's getting quite late on the East Coast, that it's 11:20. I'm very happy to work with one more person so that you can see this again. For those of you who'd like to stay, and for those of you who need to go to bed, there will be a recording on YouTube as well.
And just real quickly, Sarah, just to reiterate that first part of there were two separate questions there about where true liberation fits in if we don't really have much choice. If you have anything to say about that.
I know that Mickey Cashtan has been talking about liberation lately. And I haven't pinned her down. I haven't been in class with her and I haven't pinned her down on exactly what she's referring to. So true liberation may be a reference to Mickey's work. And I'm not sure I know enough to, or maybe a reference to somebody else's work. It sounds like it means something that I'm not sure I know that. Yes, Jaya, you may know.
Yeah, in Melissa's reading, Mickey assumes we have choice.
Uh-huh. There's something about Mickey, I think, that she has a clarity that cuts through contracts. I don't know if that, yeah, that she's claiming space for us to live without our contracts, and she does it by example, which is slightly different than what I like to do, which is to do it by releasing them. So I don't think we're philosophically so far apart, but it sounds like we are in this moment. So letting folks go and then checking with Shweta to see if Shweta wants to do something this evening.
I'm not sure that Shweta's on.
Okay.
Shweta, if you are on, go ahead and unmute, but I'm not seeing her on this evening.
Okay. Okay. And then the next name, just to check with, is Kristin S. Would you like to do something this evening, or is it getting late for you?
No, I'm here in Oregon.
Oh, wonderful. Would you like to do something this evening?
Yes, please.
Okay, very good. What shall we do for you tonight? What are you up
Feels like it might be a bit of a repeat of the two that went. So I want to thank Valerie and Emma both. It's just about 7 years ago, I experienced successive traumas right in a row over about 3 months. And the community that I had moved back to be with, who I thought I mean, I thought they were my family, like, you know, your chosen family. I'd been through rehab with a number of them. And one of the things that happened to me during those traumas was I was raped, and the community really sided with the guy that raped me.
Oh.
And, you know, one of my, who I thought was my friends, had him involved in his wedding and just didn't even invite me to his wedding. And there was just a bunch of traumas that happened. And basically I just felt really, and since then, that was 7 years ago, since then I've had, my health has declined. I stopped sleeping at that time, and the level of betrayal was so great that I had a pretty intense PTSD episode. Like I started having night terrors. I stopped sleeping. Like I wasn't doing any drugs or anything, but it felt like a pretty big break from reality because I just stopped being able to sleep.
Of course.
And I have not gotten back to my levels of functioning pre those events.
Right.
And I just am having such a hard time not blaming that community. And even to this day, like if just a few of them would be like, hey, we really dropped the ball. I really left you hanging at a time when you really needed someone. Like, I feel like it would make so much difference, but like nothing. Like I've asked for that from several of them, and they just double down on the fact that they're the real victim in it all, or, well, we weren't really that good of friends anyway, or it wasn't that big a deal, get over it. You know, like I'm never getting what I'm asking for in repair from them.
Right. First of all, I just want to acknowledge the cost to your body, that of course you wouldn't sleep, that of course you would have PTSD, that there's an experience of the violation of the actual moment, but the community being unable to hold it is even bigger for our bodies. And it lights up exclusion like this, having people dismiss and turn away. It lights up the pain network without any outlet for the pain network. But if we put you in an fMRI, we would see your pain network flashing, flashing, flashing without any body place to have it. Although sometimes for me in these situations, I do feel a lot of pain in my heart. So just to validate your body's experience. And I think also for you, we need to begin with a time travel. Otherwise, the process invalidates the truth of the traumatic events.
Okay.
What is the worst moment? I know it's weird. There's a number of them.
I know it. It's the moment. One of the pieces of the trauma was a member of the community had ALS, and I had been nursing him for 18 months, driving 8 hours round trip to be by his bedside. And I was at another person's apartment when she got the call that he's decided to go off vent. Everybody's going to gather around and sing him to the other side. And I was excluded from that process by his wife, even though I had done more than probably almost anybody in that community to try to help him during his illness and help his family with giving them free body work, bringing them meals, tons of organic food. And the fact that I wasn't, in that moment, when I knew that I was being excluded from his death process.
Yes.
That was the night I stopped sleeping.
Yes, of course. Yes, it just brings tears to my eyes. It makes so much sense. Of course, it would be the night you stop sleeping. Shall we time travel to you in that moment? Is that okay? Yeah. So as we time travel to you in that moment and find you there, are you hearing this on a speakerphone, on a telephone, on a cell phone? How are you getting this word?
If I remember correctly, this girl that I was with got a text. And then she said, oh, you probably already know this because you've been so involved in his care, but this is happening. And I was like, no, actually, I don't know that. And then it just, like I tend to be pretty psychic anyway. So it just all hit me,
You
like what
realize.
exactly was going on.
Mm. Okay. So I'm just going to take a moment to, is it okay, first of all, for us to time travel to you? I think
Yes.
you know that, yeah. And we're going to freeze the girl that was with you, and we're just going to completely turn off her phone. Just no phone. Just we're going to make Kristin safe from the outside world and from that community, just like we're freezing them long distance. Everybody's frozen. Is it okay with her that we just immobilize, freeze, turn off, get her safe? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take a moment to breathe because I'm feeling very upset on your behalf, which is not a place from which I can work as effectively as I want to, because I have tears and I can't breathe and I'm going hot and cold. So just,
Sorry.
no, honey, sorry. It's not hurting me. It's important. Do you understand the difference? My body is speaking to me about the importance of this moment. Does that make sense?
You would be the first person to
Yeah.
acknowledge how important it is.
Yeah, it's
Be
not.
the very first person.
Yeah, it is not. It's not hurting me. It's just I'm just with you, and it's just fucking horrible. So I'm just gonna breathe for a minute, okay? Okay. Just want to cuss. How's she doing? Yeah. Yeah.
I do a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I would say to her, is everything broken? Has everything broken? Yeah.
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 Especially me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah. Your family. Your family hasn't been able to accompany you on this journey at all in any way. Your family, you went one way in experiencing the rape, and your family, it's like they disappeared. And even worse, they disappeared and put shit on you.
Yeah, I was definitely scapegoated by some of them. And literally my blood family did disappear. Like my sister and my dad stopped talking to me, but I want to work with the blame I have for this group of friends.
I was thinking, when I said family, you said
My chosen family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you were working with Emma, I practiced in my mind, like freezing everybody.
Oh, good.
And my impulse was to drive over to the bedside of the man who was dying. Like if everyone would have been frozen,
how beautiful.
I could have maybe made my way over there.
What a good idea. Shall we do that? We'll just step through time and space and let you be with him. Is that okay? Just notice how it is for him that you've come. How does he respond?
I feel like he's I mean, I could be wrong, but in this moment, I get the sense that he's grateful that I'm there, because there's just so much, pardon my Shakespeare, there's so much fucking bullshit happening in the milieu of the group of people, and it's his death, and like he doesn't want all this bad juju around it. Like it doesn't feel to me like he actually wants his wife picking and choosing who gets to be there and who doesn't.
No. And then how does that land for your body?
Horror. It feels like horror.
Yeah. So we'll say to you, and tell me if you have the experience that you're fully her, or if you and I are both with her. Am I with her, or are you and I both with her? With the younger Emma. I mean, sorry, younger Kristin.
Gosh, I'm having a hard time. I feel like there's a blurring whether
It doesn't matter.
she's there and I'm here, or whether we're merged.
Yeah, no problem. So then I'll say, is the horror so great that it stops your heart from beating and stops you from breathing?
Yes.
Is there something like that the world dissolved and reformed as a world you don't know?
Or more like, this sounds weird, but it's more like, so all the time that I got close to that chosen family in rehab, it feels like that
Is invalidated?
went away. Like that never happened. And that all dissolved, and now it's back to the shittiness of when I was a kid, and I was always, told by my sister that I was weird and I shouldn't talk, and nobody would like me, everybody hated me, everybody wanted to beat me up. And so it's like that paradisical period of 15 years where I had this amazing group of friends, it just went up in smoke. It's like it never happened.
Yeah. Is there shock at its disappearance?
Shock is a really good word. Yeah. Like I was not prepared at all.
No. Who would be? Nobody would be. Yeah.
And similar with Emma, with my blaming of them, like I blame them for going to Burning Man because it looks like Burning Man made them into these shallow people, and totally took away any sense of sobriety any of us had managed. But underneath my blaming of them is so much self-blame.
Are you blaming yourself? So you're sort of stepping into the process. So I'll follow you. And again, just like with Emma, if I'm dismissing your experience, you tell me right away, because that's not what we want to have happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. If they are choiceless.
That's a hard one. That's a hard pill for me to swallow, especially with his wife.
Yeah.
Like I feel like she knew exactly what she was doing.
Yeah.
Like I discovered later that she had been jealous of me for years, since I had been made the maid of honor of one of our other friends' wedding.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it was definitely a premeditated revenge tactic on her part.
And if this is a weird question, again, tell me if it feels like I'm minimizing, because that's not where I want to go. If her premeditated, jealous exclusion of you was choiceless, how does this land for you?
All I can say is I feel a big sinking in my stomach, and I feel like a powerlessness and a hopelessness, and is as if like I'm always going to be the joke. Then I'm God's joke. I'm always going to be the target. Like if she didn't have a choice and people don't have a choice, it always funnels down to me, like shit rolls downhill and I'm at the bottom of the hill.
I'm just going to stop and breathe for a little moment because this is really important. Do you need acknowledgement? It's coming back to this word scapegoat again. That you were the scapegoat in your family when you were a little girl.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's still true to this day, that I'm the scapegoat in my family of origin.
Does your family find it easier to blame you than to look at their own things and mourn their own traumas?
Absolutely. There's so much trauma in my family, but I'm the sick one. I'm the broken one.
Yeah.
There's so much trauma in my family.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Is there a huge mourning at the enormous scale of the trauma?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And we just lost your picture, which may be deliberate, whatever you need to do. Yeah.
I just need to plug in my phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you love to experience living in a world where that was not something that the little Kristin ever had to live through?
Yeah. I would love to live in a world where my parents had all my ancestors had the resources to meet their woundedness.
Yeah. Yeah. And where children were protected. And again, maybe I've gone too global. Maybe just this child, maybe just Kristin being protected.
I definitely sense like an unconscious contract around all choose to be at the bottom of the hill kind of thing. Like I remember once in a meditation, the woman sitting next to me after it was done, she's like, man, I could just feel all my negative energy going towards you like you're a vacuum cleaner. She's like, I feel so great. How do you feel? And I was like, I feel awful.
Yeah. So let's
I
just
knew this woman.
let's let go of I feel protective. Let's see if you have such a contract. Let's let it go if it's okay. I, Kristin, solemnly swear to my essential self to take on others' pain?
I think so. To take on others' pain in order that they don't have to feel it. They don't have to see it, even in the hopes that they can take care of me instead of having to deal with how much pain they're in.
Beautiful. Yes. No matter the cost to myself.
No matter the cost to myself.
An essential self of Kristin, did you hear this vow?
Yes. And I'm worried if I revoke the vow that it'll make my parents feel worse. That all this whatever I'm holding for them will all of a sudden be back on their plate, and at 80 years of age, I don't want to do that to them. Like they're vulnerable. They're more vulnerable than me probably right now.
Are you willing for us to invite an ancestor before them, someone who has already died, to take this burden from you.
That's better. Yes. Yeah, I'm willing to invite a wise and well ancestor who could transmute this burden.
Okay. Is it okay then to say, Kristin, I release you from this vow?
Kristin, I release you from this vow.
And I revoke this contract.
And I revoke this contract.
And instead, I give you my blessing to.
And instead, I give you my blessing to find something in life that gives you moments of joy, even in the midst of others' suffering.
And to bow to others having their own path of suffering. Is that okay?
I love that. Yeah, thank you. And to bow to others having their own path of suffering. I want to put a little asterisk there that says, except for animals. You know, like, I'll do anything to save the animals.
Yes.
I will give my life to save the animals.
Sure. Beautiful. Yes. Very nice. How does your body do?
That piece about letting others have their own path of suffering, that was really potent for me. Thank you.
What happens for Kristin, who's at the deathbed of her beloved friend? How's she doing?
That was a part of it. Like, I wasn't actively letting him have his own suffering. I was really taking on his stuff with ALS. I was really taking on all the suffering of him and his family and trying to carry it as my own burden.
Can we say to her, did you love him so much? Was this did you give him your best love at that time?
I did.
Yeah. Yeah. How does she do?
There was a need for, like, acknowledgement and I mean, I don't know if I would say reciprocity, just as much as acknowledgement that has gone so unmet. Like, I overgave.
Yeah.
I violated my own boundaries. I overgave. But also to just be met with nothing but scapegoating.
Yeah.
And zero appreciation at all.
Yeah. Maybe it will sneak in another little part of the blessing to tentatively begin to receive appreciation. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the one at the deathbed, how's she doing?
There seems to be this, like, she's down and she seems to be like, so it's true. Like, it's true. Like, it's true. I really am unlovable. I really am disposable. None of these people care at all about me. They weren't really my friends.
So it sounds like in the process, we've gotten to the place where we're really touching the self-blame.
In the morning, I think.
Yeah, and the morning. The morning is good. The self-blame short circuits the morning in a way.
Okay.
So let's just touch that contract. I, Kristin, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will believe that there's something wrong with me. I don't know that that's exactly the right words. But.
Yeah, I think so. I, Kristin, solemnly swear that I will believe that there's something wrong with me. That hits, yeah.
In order to
sort of, like, I think, protect myself from, like, preemptively protect myself from people's rejection.
Beautiful. No matter the cost to myself.
no matter the cost to myself.
Yeah. Is this a good one? Do you like this one?
It feels true. Yeah.
Do you want to keep it?
Oh, no. No.
Okay. Please say, Kristin, I release you from this vow.
Kristin, I release you from this vow of believing there's something wrong with you.
And instead, I give you my blessing to...
And instead, I give you my blessing to be your own unique self, even if it's different from other people, even if you don't match up with the way other people are, that to allow yourself to let that be a good thing.
How does your body do in this moment?
I have a lot of nervousness. I don't know if that's because I know this is being recorded and stuff, or just maybe there's a little bit of excitement. I mean, it feels like the possibility of really believing that feels exciting. I don't feel like I'm there yet, but I feel like if I could believe
nice,
that.
ready even to exist on the horizon, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's happening with the one at the deathbed?
Oh, it feels different.
Yeah, how's she doing? I'd like to ask her if she needs something. Does she need to see him pass? Does she need to see, I don't know what kind of spirit you have a sense of as an accompaniment across the boundary of life and death, but does she need to know he's accompanied? It may not be so important, but I just want to check.
Yeah, I don't think.
Okay.
I don't think that's there.
And just tell me whatever you can pick up from her body.
There feels like a need. I don't know if it's a need or a compulsion to have her experience validated, to have her narrative of events be there, exist, like be a totem pole that people can't keep knocking down and be like, no, you're wrong, you perceived it wrong, like, no, that's not how it happened.
If we give her a download of the whole Me Too movement, would she like that?
I'm not totally sure what you mean by a download of the whole Me Too movement.
Well, how long ago was this moment?
This is 7 years ago, so it was before Me Too.
Yeah, so please just say about 4 or 5 years from now, women are going to start talking about this. This is a human phenomenon. This is a big old patriarchal dump truck of dismissal that humans have been heaping on each other's heads for the last centuries, and they just start talking about it 3 or 4 years from now. How does she take that?
It's mixed. There's a part of, like, when you said dump truck of dismissal, like that feels like a relief.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, it's been going on for centuries. And then there's also like, okay, well, people woke up 4 years ago and I wrote to them, like, okay, like, given what's going on on the world stage, like, how about I share what it was like for me?
Yeah.
And they still doubled down.
Still can't do it. Yeah. So now I'm going to come back to the process for you. And again, if it's too soon or has a sense of dismissing you, you let me know, okay? I'm not seeing a response from you. So I'm
Well,
not sure.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like, when I reached out, they were like, oh, we hated that guy the whole time. So like the narrative was switched.
Oh,
You know, like my version of events still is not heard. Like, no,
Yeah.
you actually didn't.
right.
You didn't advocate for me when this happened. You
Right.
took his side. And they're like, oh, no. We knew that he was an asshole.
Mm,
No, at the time you didn't.
Right. Right. So a lot of gaslighting has happened.
That's the word. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll say to Kristin, do you need acknowledgement even now of gaslighting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's helpful. It's helpful to hear that this isn't just my battle. Like, this is really entrenched in humanity. And I don't have to see it as a personal failing of my own.
Oh, good. How does Kristin's body do?
Just a lot of pain, a lot of heartache,
Yeah.
just for the existence of this just horrible human wound in our psyche
Yeah.
for women.
And I'm wanting to name also for men who are raped.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just accompanying you in this moment of grief. If it's okay.
You said something earlier about the desire to have people be accountable for their impact.
Yes.
And that sums it up.
Yes.
That's
it would.
what I want more than anything.
Yeah.
It's like I don't need them to feel blamed. I don't, and that's the first response I got from several of them when I tried to reach out. Like, I just feel blamed. And it would just shut down the conversation.
Yeah.
I just want them to be accountable for the ruptures.
Yeah. It would be very sweet if they could differentiate self-worth from impact.
Yeah.
I'm going to sneeze.
Bless you.
Thanks. Tell me about our Kristin's body.
There's a lot of holding. And I guess I'm wondering, how can I let go of this need or compulsion for somebody outside of me to take accountability for their impact? Because I can't control that.
We can see if it's a contract.
Okay.
I, Kristin, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will make someone understand.
Oh, I, Kristin, solemnly swear to myself that I will make other people understand how they've hurt me, so that we can work it through and love each other again, no matter the cost to myself.
Do you like it? Do you want to keep it?
In a perfect world, yeah, but we don't live in a perfect world, and the experience of having that contract has been really brutal. So I don't like it.
So go ahead and say, I release you from this contract.
Kristin, I release you from this contract. You no longer need to make people understand their impact. Instead, I give you my blessing to move on with your life, even if people never understand the impact their actions have had on you.
And can we also add to the blessing just a little bit?
Okay.
And to notice when you meet people who can understand impact. And to
Great.
experience delight when you do get to meet them.
That's great. I love that. Thank you. That feels a lot lighter. Yeah. Releasing that last contract feels like it was a key piece.
Very good. How is Kristin at the deathbed doing? Anything from her?
I think she feels a little bit more okay with the fact that they'll just never know. They'll just never get.
Does she want to come home to be with you? Do you want her to come home to be with you? You've actually survived this moment. She doesn't have to stay stuck in that community in that time. She can come be with you if you want her.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
So just bringing her home to you. I often have a sense of these parts melting into my heart, but sometimes they wander around and explore my life.
Thank you. You know, I just want to say I actually saw a shaman for soul retrieval about this very thing several years ago, and I feel like this was more complete and more palpable than that shamanic session.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's very good. I'm so glad that it's helped. And when you think about the community and that burden of blame that you were carrying, how are you doing now?
It has like a similar vibration of feeling. It's less intense, but it also feels just more globalized. Like, okay, that community was a microcosm of a pattern in humanity that's that's just everywhere. It's ubiquitous.
Yeah. Thank you. Such mourning as we touch into those big, painful human patterns. Kristin, is this a good place for today?
It is. Thank you so much.
Is it okay to ask people to write needs met and gifts received in the chat?
Sure, if they'd like to, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So inviting that from the folks who are here. And while people are writing, Jaya, what's happening with questions? What can we do with questions?
There are a few questions. Someone was asking if you could just expand a little bit more on something you said during this process about separating self-worth from impact. If you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah. So many of us have vows and unconscious contracts not to make a mistake and not ever to hurt. We have do no harm vows. I, Sarah, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will do no harm in order to live in integrity with myself and the universe, no matter the cost to myself. Sounds good, but in practice, what this means is that if I have an impact on someone, if I inadvertently harm my beloved friend Jaya, and she says, Sarah, that hurt, ouch. Then if I have that contract, then her notifying me that I've done something that gave her an ouch is me breaking my contract. I'm breaking my contract. So I can't let myself hear it, because if I hear it, then my contract will be broken and I will no longer be in integrity with myself and the universe. It's a very intense human pattern. I wonder if that was helpful. Well, we can wait.
Know in the chat if not.
Say that again.
They can let us know in the chat.
Yes, great.
Are you open to a couple more questions?
Yes.
Melissa says, if someone is choiceless, what is the person accountable for? Where do we look for the places of accountability? Just trying to comprehend and not quite computing.
Yeah. Impact. We are accountable for our impact, choiceless or not. We are not only accountable for the things we do on purpose. We are accountable for so much. And this is part of our relationship with global climate change, part of our relationship with systemic racism and whatever kinds of privilege we have, able-bodied, white, middle-aged, strong, healthy, all of those wonderful privileges that we can carry. We are accountable even when we have no idea that we're hurting someone. And the only way we can know that we've hurt somebody is by being open to feedback. And if we've got those do no harm vows, we can't receive feedback. So then we can never become accountable for all of the wonderful things that we do as humans that hurt others and hurt the world. My teacher, the great constellations teacher, Bert Hellinger, says, you cannot both be alive and do no harm. So there's something about starting to come to terms with that that's hugely important. We'll see if that's helpful. And what's the next question, Jaya?
Yeah. Rosemary asks, can you speak to how we can hold the part that wants to heal, but doesn't want to believe that the other could have been choiceless, can't accept this could be true, or let go of the grudge?
It means there's an unconscious contract. To hold the other responsible so that we continue to exist, or to believe the other person had choice in order to somehow hold on to the idea that we could possibly matter. A lot of different choices there.
One more or two more questions?
Yeah, sure. As many, I can.
Okay.
I mean, you're okay. I'm okay.
Yeah. Melanie asks, the other day in class, Sarah said we don't learn to blame others until we're 9 years old. I would love to hear more about this. Where does that information come from?
Oh, you can just see the words in the book, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find the reference, Melanie. It's a brain development piece. So as when we're about 18 months to 3 years, we start to develop a sense of self as distinguished from our community. Before then, we're just part of the soup of our family. And then we begin to differentiate and start to have a sense of self. And then we start to be able to have shame, and we start to be able to have pride and satisfaction in what we do. And our left hemisphere is coming online, and then the left hemisphere is learning to compensate for everything that wasn't able to be regulated and held in our family of origin for the right hemisphere. And then there's this enormous flowering of neural growth at about age 9, where all of a sudden it's besides in the very earliest days of infancy, and prenatal, it's the largest time of growth in the human brain, and it just goes, it explodes. And part of that explosion is a capacity to see things more comprehensively and to begin to understand that others can be blamed instead of us just blaming ourselves. So it's a sort of general overview. Yeah.
And then
back to Wendy. I love you, Wendy.
And then the question, I'm just going to combine it. Gail asks, but don't we want to minimize the harm we do and take accountability for our impact?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. But if we can't see it, we can't minimize it. And if we can't know we did it, then we can't be accountable. And we may wish that we could make it through with not much impact, but we can't. Really, truly. So we need to be realistic about ourselves in the world so that we can make the best choices possible and learn as much as we can and sort through stuff and sift through stuff and find the people who have done more sifting than us who can help us out, and who do we trust, and all of those things become much easier without the contracts. Yeah.
And a question I think might just be really valuable to answer is what exactly is taking accountability? I don't know if it's how do we do it, or if it's the question is just what is taking accountability?
Yeah. So in terms of interconnectedness and mutuality, taking accountability is allowing ourselves to perceive impact. And I love interdependence. So I really love it when we get to, when there's not a power in those relationships, or there's not a power imbalance, where we're not just showing up to take responsibility, because that's an unconscious contract too that a lot of people have. I'll take all the responsibility. We need to have this experience of like, yeah, I impacted you and you impacted me. And I'm willing to both take responsibility by acknowledging impact and really having a curiosity about how it was for you. And I want to be in relationship with people who have that same curiosity about me. How did they impact me? That's cool.
Yeah. And then someone was wondering about it being disempowering to be for people who are in the receiving end of deeply abusive behavior, for which people do need to be held accountable. It seems like that if we use choicelessness, that it takes away the accountability. So along the same theme.
Yeah, it's such an interesting theme, isn't it?
And just wanting for people not to be doubly victimized.
Absolutely. It's possible that we are touching a societal unconscious contract to believe that people have choice so that we can punish them for their wrong actions and hope for some kind of change.
And then lastly, where can people learn about your work? Where can they learn more? Where can they go?
Oh, thank you for asking. sarahpayton.com. We have a new website, which is no longer magically run by Jaya, just making sure everything actually seems like it's working when it's not. And you can reach us there. You can you'll be reaching out to help at sarahpayton.com, and you can see all the offerings. For those of you who are interested in constellations, I do a monthly constellations and neuroscience offering. For those of you interested in neuroscience and resonant empathy, that's an offering that I do once a month as well. And then there's lots of cool programs to do just both as self-study and to be part of online now for this COVID period mostly. So it makes it very accessible. That's all shown there. And Jaya and I are working on putting together a resonance conference that I'm very excited about on approximately the 16th of March. And please stay tuned for that. That's going to be so much fun. We got Bonnie Badenoch to be one of the speakers there. And the folks who've been developing this work and taking it into all different fields are also going to be presenting there.
And the name of your new book, Sarah.
The name of the first book is called Your Resonant Self. And the second book is called the Your Resonant Self Workbook. I wanted it to say something about unconscious contracts, but my publisher said no. And so it's called the Your Resonant Self Workbook, which at least makes it easy to remember. And then there's also a third book, which I'm delivering the manuscript of on December 31st, which is Affirmations for Turbulent Times, a resonance to soothe your being. And somebody just pre-ordered the workbook. Yay, wonderful. And Melanie writes, blame for the publisher. Damn you, beloved publisher. Yes.
Maybe for an extra book.
Yeah. It was lovely to be with you all and to get to do some of this work for you. And I'm just sending everybody lots of love and hope that our paths cross again. If you liked what you see, we'd love you to learn it and do it and take it into the world and have a good time with this work if it's something that touches you. All right.